And now, ladies and gentlemen,
Put your thumbs up and say it's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo, Tickety Boo, everything's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo, son. Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo! Welcome back to Tickety Boo. We drop a new episode every Monday, and today we're talking about something I think we all recognise but rarely say out loud. The parts of us we don't let other people see, the edited version versus the full version. Why do we hide certain sides of ourselves? That's where we're going today. Guys, I think most of us have different versions of ourselves depending on the room that we're in. A work version, a social version, a family version. That's very normal. But there are parts of us that never really get to see the light of day. Parts of us that we bury. And if I'm honest, there are parts of me I don't always show through insecurity, resentment, things from the past, anger sometimes, even ego to a certain extent. Can you resonate with this parts of us that we definitely keep it in the back pocket?
In the back pocket.
In the back pocket, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me personally, the one thing I keep, well, the two things, frustration and vulnerability. They're probably the things that I keep tucked away.
Yeah, I think for me, vulnerability and I'm not as confident as I come across.
Yeah, I'm laughing at that one because I am very confident, but I know other people think I'm even more confident than I am.
Yeah. I think, the part of me that I'm probably hiding away the most is that I have this massive fear of, not massive, but the underlying fear of not being good enough or being criticised.
Being criticised is probably mine, and there are certain things I'd like to not go down the road of dishonesty, but in reality, if you're hiding things, there's a degree of that involved, but I probably don't fully allow people to see all of me because the public persona, the pride thing, the fear of judgment. So I will always show a slightly edited version.
Well, I think that's because we were shamed for something when we were young, told us not to do that. So we hide it because it was the blueprint. It was trained into us. So don't do that. That's shameful. So then we have shame or we have guilt about something or a behaviour that we did or something that happened to us. So we hide that part away.
I don't think anybody gets to see the full, true, authentic version of ourselves.
No, there's always bits that
we
edited.
held back.
I believe that 95% of you is out there, but not all seen by the one person. So one person might see a particular package of you that's maybe your closest might see 85%.
Yeah.
But there's bits that the lads will see this bit, your wife will see this bit. So I don't think any one person or group see the full package and everything.
Yeah,
even though the bits are out there.
An example for me is, I can be in a corporate environment teaching, and I'll walk into a room with people that are incredibly successful, and even though I know I've got the knowledge and the experience, I'm standing in front of the room going, I hope they can't see how under the surface nervous I am and concerned that I am that they don't resonate with me. Now, normally within about 20 minutes I've been in the room, that goes away. But like at the beginning, there's definitely a big bit of imposter syndrome.
About the same imposter syndrome, I think.
Yeah, but I've learned over years that just means that I care and it's important to me, and I want it to, But I definitely try to hide away the fact that I'm still trying to figure things out as well, and I'm on my own journey, and at times I don't always have the answers.
Do you think? Well, I know the answer to this. As a therapist, do you feel it's more difficult to show all aspects of yourself because you feel you kind of put on a pedestal is probably the wrong word, but you feel that people have an expectation of you, so that makes you more inclined to hide It's simply due to your social standing and your general position.
I find myself as a therapist when I'm talking to the client going, God, I wished I could be more like this with myself. And when clients talk to me, I very often resonate with them because I have the same kind of issues and belief and lack of confidence. And I don't think this is unhealthy. And I don't think it's necessarily a problem as long as we acknowledge that this is there.
Yeah. Confidence is a big one. Now, for me, confidence, I have no issues with confidence, but what people don't see is how easily it can be damaged or dethroned. And I think people think I'm incredibly, well, we are all resilient, but I think people don't quite see how you can be chipped away at and how, it's not, you're not that fortress that people think that you are, and that confidence can get bashed quite easily.
That whole early learning set, isn't it, where certain parts of you were rewarded for things you did, but other parts of you were rejected. And we learn to adapt and survive, don't we, when those things kind of go on, this programming that's put into us. I mean, I know it sounds daft, but actually probably our very earliest examples of rejection was someone didn't want to be your friend, or you got asked a girl to dance with you and she said no, or whatever it is. And because there was normally an audience around that and there's a bit of ribbing and stuff, it's not really the rejection, it's the audience's reaction to that drives the issue.
The feeling that you're attached to it.
Yeah.
Like I say, whether it's somebody at school, for me, school bully, or siblings. Siblings can be absolutely brutal in your own home environment.
Yeah. I think we all learn really early on which parts of us are accepted more.
Yeah.
And which parts aren't. Like for you, and I do this as well, generally people will accept the funny bit of me. They don't like so much the standoffish version of me where I'm like, no, actually, that doesn't work for me. That doesn't go well. So I don't like putting that part of me into play, because sometimes that old part of me that fears rejection will come in. Don't lose them. Don't. So I park those parts of me. They go back in the back pocket. Where does this show up for you, do you think?
It was interesting when I knew we were going to be talking about this today. Was also what was coming up for me is about authenticity, and the more truthful we can be with ourselves. Because another thing I'm doing is training in internal family systems, and there's a really great book which is called No Bad Parts, and I think so. I've been looking at all really differently. There's just different parts of us that have developed in order to
survive.
And so that's the trauma work with that. And so I'm really aware of that. So I've been really kind with myself, because part of the training is like you're doing the work because you have to do case studies. I would say that when I was younger in my teenage years, like I was very much a performative party girl. No, not stripping or anything like that. But, like I drank heavily in my teenage years. And that was definitely a way to hide the parts of me so that I could fit in. So I was more sort of performative instead of trying to figure out who I was when I was a lot younger.
I think it resonates for me. There was a part of me that always wanted to be accepted and not rejected, but weirdly that had a downside of it, a negative trait where it would bring out ego. So in order to the behaviour became, in order to not get rejected and to be accepted, unconsciously you were bragging about things you've done or achieved. So this person goes, oh wow, they're great. And therefore so it comes across, you're just bragging. You're actually trying to break down the anxiety that this person doesn't like you that much. So that, it's about keeping. And actually somebody called me out on it once, and it was horrible. It was really uncomfortable, but it needed to be uncomfortable. I needed to feel that to go, oh, you're right. Yeah, I am doing that, but I'm coming from this place. I'm not coming from a place of, hey, check me out. Aren't I utterly brilliant? I'm coming from, I really need you to accept me right now. So I'm coming from a place of anxiety.
Yeah, the two polar opposites, aren't you?
Yeah.
How you're being perceived and where you're actually coming from.
Yeah. So, good intentions behind it, but like the outward behaviour wasn't that kind of nice.
But that's the thing. A lot of the time, where you're coming from, it's coming from a place so far behind you in the past. Nobody in your current circumstances will understand that, or there's very
No,
few
they
people
won't.
that understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So they take it on a surface level, which can be totally misread.
Yeah, totally. I was trapped inside this identity of I'm not good enough. So these parts would come to play. And then when ego comes into play, that never goes well. When ego is running the show, but ego wasn't been driven through narcissism. It was been driven from a complete lack of self-worth and anxiety. If that kind of makes sense, where some people, ego will come into play because it's about superiority and feeling better and putting people down. I'm deeply ashamed of moments in my history where that part of me came into play.
Yeah, I'm glad you just said that, because I think some of the stuff that you do now and you will hide now is linked to that sense of shame. Shame is huge, massive.
It's brutal.
I mean, 40 years, well, not 40 years, but a lot of years later, I'll still sit there and just think of something and go, and I don't know why, but there's no relevance to any, it would just suddenly come into my head. And that's, I think shame is probably one of the biggest drivers of me hiding things.
Yeah.
Not that I've got a massive amount to be ashamed of. It could be silly things, as a kid. It could be shame of rejection, shame of something you've said. So having this conversation now, would I say I could probably include shame in some of, because when I was younger, I was picked on, I was taught to swing first, ask questions later. So now because of some of the ways that I'd reacted to things in the past, I'm quite shameful over that, and I've learned. So now I might avoid, one of the things I do is I suppress how I feel to avoid conflict. So I've had my entire management style has been evolved and built around avoiding conflict, which is a bit daft, really. But then when you avoid conflict, when it does come out as frustration, it explodes out. It doesn't come out in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
So
I think it's the behaviours that we build to protect those parts of us. And in the past, have certainly made me act like a complete dick. And that's when you look back and go, oh, God. And you remember those moments more than some of your standout proud moments. And, whether you call it shadow work or whatever it is, it's like if you're listening to this episode and you can't look back at previous versions of yourself and really not like them, you're not doing something right. Or you've been very fortunate and you've started on a really good footing and you've done things right. But, for me, safety came through control. Controlling the narrative, and that's where that ego would come in. And then I'm performing. It's the performance,
and that gets exhausting.
Oh
as well,
man,
when you're
it's
performing. So it's your whole. It's not even hiding one part of you. When you're performing, then it's this whole mask that you're presenting, and that gets tiring.
well, it's when that part of you runs the show.
Yeah.
As well. It's it's about image management. It's about the story you tell yourself, so you act in a way to make your feelings better for you, and the outward behaviour is not always good. The output's not good. And I didn't realise till a lot later, the way out of this starts with compassion for the part rather than loathing or hating the part of you. And it's not about making excuses for bad behaviour. It's about going, I can see why I operated like that, and now making an effort to be better.
yeah, so your set of standards and values are completely different now from what they were 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But you still find yourself looking back at the old version.
Yeah.
You're looking back at the old version, judging by today's learnings and standards.
Yeah.
There's the growth that we were talking about in another episode. Like,
Yeah, I think sadly, it takes people a long time to get to that point. And one of the things I'm hoping with people listening to this episode is they can maybe take a bit of a shortcut and get to it earlier so they can enjoy more elements of their life. Because what happens is we keep the insecure parts of us hidden, but the resentful bit is kicking off under the surface absolutely spectacularly. And that will show up in your behaviors and the way that you run your life. And actually the way that you deal with this earlier on rather than running away from the parts, life would just be a damn sight easier. A lot easier. Do you think we create these expectations in our own heads about how we're supposed to show up in the world?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Unanimous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know there are certain people that will look at me and say, well, who's he to be a therapist? How hypocritical.
Snap.
And it comes from the place of learning and real life experience, which is why and empathy, which is why it works.
Mm-hmm.
But people look at you and go, well, you're not perfect. Who are you to do this? And I have that and I know there's only one or two, but you still have that pressure on yourself to present yourself in a certain way, which will encourage you to hide bits of yourself.
Yeah.
It really is.
But then you feel trapped in that version then, don't you? It's like, how do I break out of this?
This is the nice guy syndrome, where the nice guy thinks that he's been super nice, so he deserves respect, and he's being everything to everybody, but on the face of it, he's actually quietly slightly manipulative and dishonest because he's changing and being a chameleon and evolving to the audience he's got around him.
But then could we not say in that situation, people aren't coming to you for that version of your story, they're coming to you for your knowledge.
Yeah, and for the resilience and the healing that you've done, because I think that's what makes us all well-rounded as therapists, as facilitators in this work. It's because we've done the work, we've got the story, and we know what it's like, so we can relate. So there's no judgment ever.
Oh, no, there's never judgment.
We've heard it all.
Well, I would say I haven't done the work. I'm still doing the work.
Yeah, but again, if life's a book, just as how cheesy is that? But we're all on just different chapters, and people that you're right up there in the book. You've got somebody still at chapter 1, just trying to figure it out.
So compared to them, you've done the work.
It's going back to help guide them through,
but nowhere near the conclusion.
Oh, there's no such thing.
Here's a question for you: do you think if you did show those parts of yourself that we've used the phrase you keep in your back pocket, if you did show that, do you think everyone would stay?
Yes.
Yes.
The people that I have in my inner circle, yes.
Inner circle, yes.
Yes.
Yes. I couldn't publicly bear all to everybody.
But I sensed a but.
Right, okay. I would still, out of respect for people, I would still...
Yeah.
The lads would still get what the lads get. I've got a very close friend that gets every version of everything from me. But I'd still... Yeah, I think that you're still allowed to have your privacy. You're still allowed...
I suppose where I'm going is, if you did that, would certain people lose confidence in you?
I think there are certain people on the planet that would then use your insecurities maybe in a way that they shouldn't do. So I don't think everybody should be entitled to every part of you. You've still got to protect yourself. With anybody that matters, absolutely, I don't think anybody would go anywhere.
Or, if they don't lose confidence in you, they judge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. And depending on what it is that you're keeping in your back pocket, I think definitely there's a difference between professionally and professionally and then what's happening in your private life. Because, you definitely can't just be all out there.
I think the one thing that we've got to definitely agree on is that by keeping these parts of us in our back pocket, it comes at a cost.
Yes.
Whether that's overthinking or overwhelm or insecurity, it does come at a cost. Like, I know for me, keeping some of these parts in my back pocket at times has made me feel like a bit of a fake.
Yes.
And I don't like that.
Yeah.
I would rather stand up in front of a group, like I've just started a course here, And I'd rather stand up in front of them and go, right now, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed because there's a lot of you and you're all looking at me to answer all of your questions. I will give you my everything, but I'm not your everything, if that kind of makes sense. I don't do that, but that's kind of what's going on with me in the inside. But I also see other trainers who stand up there full of absolute ego, think they know everything and they are everything and their energy's coming from a different place. I would rather not be perfect than pretend that I'm perfect and, you know, facing your flaws, because I think if you hide everything, your life just starts to feel a bit fragmented. I know the areas in my life where this shows up and I am trying to work through it. There's the phrase, isn't it? Go through it.
Yeah.
Be in it. So maybe if you're listening to this, the question is what, not so much why do I have these parts? It's maybe more of who feels safe enough around you to see them.
Yeah. And then where you can be your authentic self. That's the authenticity.
Well, if no one sees the insecure bit, does anybody truly see you? You know, and if somebody judges you in that moment of insecurity, well, they were never really your people, were they?
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So some reflective questions for our listeners as we come towards the end of this episode. What part of you rarely gets any airtime? For me, it's vulnerability.
For me, it's vulnerability and again, frustration.
For you?
I would say vulnerability.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. Next question is, who in your life feels safe enough for you to just be you around them?
Well, you guys.
Yeah, we prefer it when you're not just yourself, actually. You get what I mean, because your energy feels different when you're around those people, doesn't it? You know, you're very much around it. The next question is, are you protecting connection or are you protecting an image? For me, at times, it's image.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. There's a lot of protecting image.
At the sake of keeping connection that's no longer good for me. So that's detrimental over a period of time. Next question is, what would change if one small piece of the real you just started to show up now and again?
I think I'd have more fun.
I think I'd just not stop caring, but stop worrying as much.
I think I'd stop being so concerned about everybody else. Now, that as a therapist, that's terrible, but I spend a lot of time that concern about how everybody else is going to react to my reaction. It affects my reaction, which sometimes doesn't make it authentic.
No, I get you, but I think it's also not everyone deserves to get full access to you.
Agreed. 100%.
You know, that is really, really important. There are certain, you need to protect your energy, but maybe this is less about exposure and more about just trusting yourself.
Yeah. And an element of protection.
Yeah, there's always protection in there, but I think it starts with, what's the part of me that's in my back pocket? I don't feel good enough. I'm afraid of being alone, judged, criticised, whatever it is, and start to have compassion towards that part. But notice what happens when that part shows up, which has positive intention for you, but sometimes the outward behaviour actually takes you away from where you want to be. So working with those parts of you rather than fighting them. Yeah. Would that be fair to say? Great. Well, I really enjoyed that chat. That went off in a direction I didn't think we were going to go with it. So I'm quite pleased about it, as many of our episodes do. So that about wraps this episode. Next week, we're going to shift gears and we're talking about those quiet resentments that we have that we never really admit. As always, we massively appreciate you watching and listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode of Tickety Boo.
If you or someone close to you needs to access mental health support, please contact your GP, or if it's out with normal office hours, get in touch with NHS 24 on 111. Alternatively, contact the Samaritans on 116 123. All calls are free of charge from any phone. You can also find more support information on the Tickety Boo website, ticketyboopodcast.co.uk.